What's up, you guys? Godzilla Fan Freaks coming at you today with another figure review. And today we're reviewing the X Plus 30 centimeter Gamera 1996 from Gamera versus Legion. Let's just get straight on into this figure review by saying this is a gift from my girlfriend this year for my birthday. Very thoughtful of her to dig into my hobby and find something that I might want. And I have been wanting a Gamera 96 30 centimeter from X Plus. Gamera 96 is my favorite version of Gamera. I love the design, I love the look, just awesome. And she actually went to one of my Godzilla friends, or they contacted each other, and she ended up getting this figure from him. So I have to thank my friend Mark Calloway. This is also kind of a gift from him, even though she bought it for me from him. Kind of a gift from both of them. So thank you, Mark, and thank you, Amber. I appreciate it. So let's get straight on into this figure review by looking at the front cover of the box, since I break down my boxes. So yes, Mark, but you can scold me later, Mark, if you want. But I just keep the front covers of the boxes just because I don't have room to keep the big old cardboard box. So here's the front cover of the box. Very nice, Gamera 2, title right there, pretty much. Very nice picture of the figure. Very nice green color. Green's one of my favorite colors, so that's always a plus. And so there is the front cover of the box. Very nicely well done. Now, just getting on into this figure review with paint job. Paint job, Gamera's green. Very nice green, but not just all one shade. You got all different kinds. You got a very nice kind of like not a mossy green for his skin, but it's almost on the it's kind of on the border. It's almost like a gray green, like a gray greenish color for his skin, on his head, his arms, his legs, all the way around. The back of his shell is a very nice, like deep yucky algae kind of green look, but very, very nicely well done and applied. Very smooth. And of course, for his tusks, his teeth, his claws on his hands and his feet, and of course his little elbow spikes here, whatever you want to call them. Very nice, shaded ivory colors with, light ivory down to some brown. So very nice all the way around. Inside of the mouth, a very nice, pinkish red. Very nicely well done and applied. And, and they give it a glossy look to give it a little bit more realism. Like, I hate using the word, but his mouth is, moisturized. His mouth is moist. It looks like, a real creature's mouth. So like there's saliva in there and everything. But very nicely well done. Eyes are beautifully well done with, of course, whites and greens and blacks. And there's even little hints of eye veins in there, blood vessels, but you can barely hardly see them. But the eyes are very, very well done. Also finished with a nice glossy look to give them a shine. And so again, the claws on his feet, that same kind of ivory color with the light ivory down to some browns and whatnot. The shell on his belly here, very nice, dark brown, very nicely well done and applied. And overall, that is about it for paint job. Lots of greens and browns, pretty much. But now let's go on into detail. Detail, Gamera looks fantastic. Starting with the head, it captures the face of the 96 Gamera. I mean, it looks fierce, but it also kind of still has that little bit of a cutesy look from the 95 movie Gamera Guardian of the Universe. It's just a little it's a little tweaked a little bit to look a little bit more ferocious. Not as ferocious as Gamera in 1999 though. We know how he turned out. Man, did he look mean. But Gamera 96 just looks awesome. Just all the wrinkles and whatnot in the face, the little nostrils very nicely etched into the sculpt. All the lines and kind of like the spikes here on the top of his head, very nicely, etched into the sculpt. All the teeth individually sculpted. The tusks look great. The tongue and the gums and the inside and the roof of his mouth, all beautifully, beautifully well done. I don't know how well any of that's going to show up on camera. All the wrinkles on his neck and in his arms, just all that wrinkly turtle skin all over his legs, his arms, his neck, just all of that in there looks great. The very turtle-like pattern for his belly, it looks like a real turtle shell. I mean, X Plus knocked it out of the park. Just all the lines and indentations and everything grooved into the sculpt look amazing. His giant, turtle feet, with the webbing in between, look very nicely and well done. Very nicely sculpted. course, the back of his shell, all of the armor plating and whatnot for his back, very, very nicely well done and layered. It just looks fantastic. Looks beautiful. All the way down to the tail, you got all that same wrinkly, turtle skin, and then of course the top of his tail, which kind of has the same armor-like pattern from his shell, but that kind of continues on the top of his tail to give it a little bit of a more armored look. So very, very nicely well done. Now, as far as X Plus goes, that's about it. It's all detail and paint job. Articulation, he does have joints and seams in the arms and the legs, but that's really about it. You really can't move this guy because he's really only going to sit one way because of the pose. He's very hunched over. He's ready to go into the attack on Legion. And there is one thing I do know about this figure is that it did have a leaning problem because over time, vinyl, depending on your room temperature, the vinyl will start to, morph and he'll start to lean forward. So immediately going into this figure, knowing that it had that issue, what I did was I just took some of the plastic, inserts that, wrapped around his feet and his tail and whatnot. I took those and I put some nickels, and wrapped up nickels in it to give his tail some weight. So I just did all that and I wrapped up the nickels and then I shoved them inside the tail. So now he has a little bit more weight than he did, but he has a whole bunch of nickels and plastic now in his tail that is going to hold him back. So that is going to stop him from leaning forward. So that is how you tackle that problem if you have a figure that has a leaning problem. You can either put something underneath their feet to help raise them up, or if you can weigh down their tail with some type of material, whether it be coins, paper, maybe some like metal beads or something, or maybe even some small rocks or something, just to give it some weight to help balance it out. That way you don't have a leaning problem in the future. But so that problem solved with my Gamera. No problem with leaning in any near future with this guy. And just to show you guys a little comparison, since he's right here, here he is next to the 25 centimeter Gamera 96. Hopefully get them both in the camera shot. Both look great together. Of course, the 30 centimeter is more, hunched over and whatnot. But yeah, they both look great. I almost can't choose which one I like better, but I guess if I had to, it would have to be the 30 centimeter, just because I like the bigger figures. I like, it looks better. It captures a little bit more detail because you have more room to work with than you do on downsizing something. And even though a 5 centimeter difference really isn't that much when you think about it from 25 and 30, but as a contrast to a figure, it's actually quite a bit. So anyways, just to sum up this review with scaling, there he is, scaled with the 25 centimeter Gamera 96. Both figures look great. I have both my Gameras on each side of Gauss down here on this shelf. So now to sum up this review, let's just end it. Hope we are Godzilla fan freaks. Hope you enjoyed this review on the X Plus 30 centimeter Gamera 1996. Like always, please comment, like, and subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next video review. Thank you for watching.